Everybody online to our webinar today. As Michelle already said, today we want to talk about a pretty important topic. It's about the health of an innovation program and how we can actually identify how healthy an innovation program is and how well it is performing. Just to give you a brief overview of what we want to talk about. I want to give you a brief introduction on myself, a little bit about my background, and then we want to start to talk about actually KPIs themselves. So what are KPIs, what KPIs should be measured, which ones are important, which ones are not so important. Then we will switch over to the benchmarking topic. So what are the benefits if we compare ourselves to other organizations? How should we do that, and maybe when shouldn't we do that? And as a last point today, I want to talk about the indicators for healthy innovation programs. So what makes an innovation program healthy? How can you identify if your own innovation program is performing well or if it isn't performing well enough? And last but not least, we will then talk a little bit about your questions that you have. As Michelle said, please send me the questions in the meantime or at the end of our webinar today. Both options are possible. Good. So let's start with a little bit about myself. My name is Khattab, as Michelle said. I'm a strategic consultant here at Hype. I've been working here at Hype for more than 5 years now, primarily in the European and Asian region. I've been a project manager at Hype for more than 3 years, working with large and medium-sized organizations in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And now I have switched a little bit my focus. I'm helping organizations to plan and align innovation programs to their corporate strategy. I'm conducting coaching seminars for a couple of companies here in the region and in the Middle East. Just to give you a brief overview of where our knowledge comes from and where our insights come from. Here is an overview of all of our companies, or the majority of our companies that we are working with. You see that we are independent of technological areas or business areas. We work in the pharma sector as in the automotive sector, and we have a very broad experience with different kinds of customers, from small to medium-sized to really blue-chip organizations that come from different industries, as you can see. So who is this webinar for? So who should be interested in this topic? First of all, everybody who is new to innovation management. Generally speaking, reporting and KPIs and benchmarking are important topics in innovation management, in the space of innovation management. So it should be of interest for everybody who is new to the topic itself. If you are looking to establish an innovation program soon, then this will become a topic for you. Your management will probably request KPIs and performance indicators from you, and probably it is helpful for you to know what you should focus on and what you should report. And last but not least, of course, everybody who has a special role if it comes to monitoring and reporting success. What we have seen usually in organizations is that innovation teams are usually divided a little bit into specific roles, and in some scenarios we have seen that specific innovation managers usually report and monitor performance and successes in an innovation program. If you have the special role, then this is of interest for you. All right, so let's start our first topic, and let's think about KPIs, and let's talk about KPIs. So what is a KPI? Let's try to define what KPIs really are and what kind of meaning they have. So first of all, what you see in an organization is that KPIs usually are being influenced from two sides. On the one side, they somehow are aligned to business goals and objectives, and goals and objectives are usually motivational aspects for organizations. So what does an organization want to achieve? What are their goals on a short term, on a long term? And in the end, these are the measurements for performance and for achievement on a corporate level. Next to that, you usually would define so-called critical success factors. These are factors that simply indicates how good you have met one of your goals. Let me just give you an example. So let's say your management sets a goal which is defined by being more profitable in the next 12 months, and the profitability should rise by 10%. So this is a goal that is relevant for the whole organization, and now you would have to drill this down. So what does this mean to be 10% more profitable in the next 12 months? Well, it means usually that you either lower your costs or that you raise your revenues, one of both aspects. And the critical success factor could be, for example, lowering costs each quarter by 10%. This would be then a critical success factor. On the other side, if you look at the technical details, what you can do in an innovation platform is usually you can measure numbers and you can measure data. So people are participating, people are submitting ideas, comments and votes, and you simply can count the numbers. On top of that, now what you can do is you can define metrics, which are usually simple relations between measures. And this means that you, for example, say, well, I can count the number of ideas, but maybe I want to know the average number of ideas per employee. Now this metric simply is a ratio that simply tells you, okay, in a certain time frame, how many ideas do I get per employee. Now, a KPI combines both aspects. A KPI is usually defined as an important metric that shines out of the group of all available metrics, and that simply informs the innovation management team and in the end your corporate management how good you're performing. And usually KPIs, they are evaluated against those critical success factors that you have. So in our example, if we say we want to lower costs every quarter by 10%, this would be a metric that we could simply define as a KPI that could be reported to our management. So now we have defined what a KPI really is, but what makes a KPI really unique in the end? So as we said, KPIs, first of all, they reflect the goals and objectives of an organization. That is a key aspect, and it makes, in the end, KPIs valuable. KPIs that are not aligned to goals and objectives of an organization are somehow more or less metrics that you measure, but they don't really deliver any kind of indication for that can be analyzed by your management in the end. Another part is that KPIs in the end help you to analyze and evaluate your success. So where are you in your innovation program? How good are you performing? And KPIs really help you to evaluate the status quo and to see have we achieved the successes that we are looking for, or are we far away from that? So in some cases, KPIs, they need a little bit of context, especially if it comes to KPIs that reveal developments in the end. So we have seen this in a lot of organizations that KPIs are compared to each other. So you take something from the last quarter and compare it to this quarter, or from last year and compare it to this year. And that is often the case. So they need context in some cases. Of course, in some other cases, they would stand on their own and would be evaluated on their own. And of course, KPIs should be simple to understand. They should be simple to communicate. So when you, for example, create a report on KPIs and you send this to your management, or you send this to anybody who's interested in those numbers, you don't want to explain those KPIs in detail. They should be self-explanatory, and they should reveal what they really show in the end and what they highlight. So what KPIs ultimately do, what they are really used for, is to be the basis for decisions in the end. So when you as innovation management or your corporate management want to make decisions in the end, they want to decide, well, is the innovation program really delivering the results we're looking for? Do we have to act on results that we have achieved? Are they good enough? Are they not good enough? What should we do in the end to maybe drive the value of an innovation program? In nearly all of the cases that we have seen, KPIs are the basis for those decisions. So that is a key fundamental aspect of KPIs, that they enable you as the innovation managers and ultimately your corporate management to decide where do we have to go, what do we have to change, or are we satisfied with the results. So which KPIs should we take? Which are the important ones? Which are the ones that we should really focus on? If we want to decide which KPIs we should pick, first of all, what we have to do is we have to ask our management, well, what are your business goals? What do you want to achieve? Please tell us what kind of strategic goals you have set. And as a next step, we would go and try to understand those goals. So we have to be sure that if management provides those strategic goals, that we in detail know what they exactly mean. In some cases, maybe we need to connect to our management and discuss those strategic goals. In some cases, we don't need that, because in the end, we have to take those business goals and we have to drill down into the KPIs, and we have to define KPIs that are aligned to those goals. So the next step would be, after we have understood what management is really looking for, we then try to come up with KPIs that are quantifiable, of course. KPIs are per definition metrics, and those are again per definition measures, so they have to be quantifiable, and in the end we have to make decisions based on them, as we just talked about. So that would be the next step. Here at this point we would then create our KPIs, and what we have seen is that the most valuable KPIs are simply the ones that focus on the value that management is expecting. So if you know what your management wants, if it comes down to return on investment or to any kind of value that they are expecting, these are the KPIs that you should be looking for. Everything besides that is maybe of interest, and especially if it comes to participation, if it comes to KPIs that reflect the engagement of your audience, of your employees. That is also important, but it is only a mean for driving quality in the end and achieving the values and the ROI that you're looking for. So yes, participation can be measured and engagement can be measured, but we shouldn't focus on it. We should really focus on revealing what kind of value and what kind of return on investment our innovation program has achieved. What we have also seen is an interesting aspect. What we have seen in some companies is that absolute numbers are often focused on. So we see, well, we have achieved in this quarter a saving of X%, and this is now communicated, and this is now sent to management. But what is an interesting side aspect of it is that in a lot of cases, actually the real development is interesting. And both play an equally important role if it comes to reporting successes. So developments, so comparing current results with past results, and maybe revealing that innovation programs are on a journey and that they continuously perform better and better, and stating, of course, absolute numbers. Both aspects should be equally important if you report KPIs to your management. Which KPIs should we measure? So there are things that we shouldn't focus on or shouldn't measure at all. And one aspect is that we should try to focus on KPIs that somehow reveal the quality of an innovation program or the quality of a campaign, for example, and not so much on quantitative aspects. So if we simply, for example, count ideas, that's a good number on its own, but what does it say about the quality of ideas? And this again plays to the aspect that really the value of an idea, that is the thing that management is looking for. That is the thing that plays a key role if it comes to evaluating the performance of an innovation program. The problem here is that if we focus on the wrong KPIs and if we measure the wrong things, the wrong data, then this might lead us to wrong decisions in the end. So it might be the case that we think, well, we have a number of ideas achieved. It could be that we are satisfied with it, then we don't do anything. It could be that we're not satisfied with it, then we try maybe to get more ideas from employees. But maybe on the end of the idea life cycle, the achieved value, we maybe didn't focus on that enough. So focusing on the wrong KPIs might lead to wrong decisions, and this is a crucial aspect here. And that's why I want to give you a couple of examples that simply highlight to you what could be potentially wrong KPIs. So the basic KPI that we shouldn't focus on too much is the one that is not directly aligned to the strategic goals of our organization. So if it is not aligned to the values that management is looking for, then we should be really hesitant to implement this KPI or even analyze it. Another example is a KPI that is vague or not clear enough if it comes to the value of this KPI. So if you have indicators, or if you want to implement indicators that are not self-explanatory or that are or can be interpreted in many ways, then you should probably step back and probably not implement those KPIs. Additional KPIs that maybe are not so welcome are the ones that are really nice to know or nice to have, meaning that when you design this KPI, you already know, well, this doesn't deliver real value here. It's nice to know the average amount of, let's say, votings per employee. That's maybe a nice number, but in the end, it doesn't really reflect what kind of value is achieved here. And you usually wouldn't really build your decisions on this KPI alone. So that is something that you should then maybe measure as a metric, but it shouldn't be a key KPI that you report to your management. Additionally, and very, very important, are refutable KPIs. So if you design KPIs that can be discussed or can be neglected by management because they can be interpreted in many ways and they can be refuted in the end, these are KPIs that you shouldn't implement at all. So KPIs that can be, let's say, attacked and they can be questioned if it comes to their value, you shouldn't try to implement those. If you are in the designing phase of your reporting system and you already know, well, this KPI, I'm pretty sure our management will question this, then try to step back and try to maybe measure this but not report it as a KPI. The same goes for the situation, and we have seen this in organizations, when you have simply too many KPIs. If you have a very high number of KPIs so that you don't know what kind of message you get out of them, then you are in a situation where you should work on your KPI schema. If you get the question, what are the key KPIs, then you are in a situation where you should simply reduce the number of KPIs that you report, which doesn't mean that you should remove them. Maybe just treat them as regular metrics. They are numbers that you maybe measure, but they are not relevant for your management, and maybe they're not relevant to base decisions on them. So if you are in that situation, you probably have too many KPIs. And last but not least, something that we have also seen is an interesting aspect of KPIs. We have seen that usually some KPIs have a certain lifespan. They are relevant for maybe a year, and in the next year they are not relevant anymore because management has decided to go for other strategic goals. So if you take our example where we said, well, we want to raise our profitability by 10%, maybe this is of importance in this year. But in 2015, our management says, well, we have achieved this goal, we are very profitable, now we want to focus on revenue, or we want to create 2 new business areas where we focus on completely new products. So strategic goals can change, and we have seen this, and if that happens, then you should review your KPIs. And we have seen that usually an annual review is the best way to go. That's actually a best practice that we recommend, to simply every 12 months look at your KPIs, maybe talk to management, does this still relate to you, does it still relate to your goals, and simply question your own KPIs. Do they still make sense? Because in the end, if you implement wrong KPIs, and if you maybe even focus on wrong KPIs, it may lead you to a performance that is weaker than it could be. So they become, in the end, key performance inhibitors, we call them. They limit you and the organization's performance in the end. And this is something that you're not looking for. This is something that really is a critical issue. If you make decisions based on wrong KPIs, this might lead to missed revenue or missed costs that you could have saved. And this is something that you want to prevent in the end. I would like to give you 2 examples of customers of ours who are pretty successful, and just to show you what KPIs are important for those 2 organizations. and how different KPIs can be treated, and that in some cases some KPIs are important to one organization and totally unimportant to others. So one example, a very successful customer of ours is the Deutsche Post DHL. They run an idea management platform that is mainly looking for saving costs, and they have a long journey. They are doing this for many, many years now. And just to give you two figures here, so they get around 230 million euros in savings per year, and they save on average around 500 euros per employee, which is a pretty impressive number. And this is something that their management actually requested. They said, well, this is the number that we are looking for. We want to save money, and please report on us how much could we achieve of that goal throughout our idea management platform. As a second example, which is a totally different use case, is PSA, Peugeot Citroën. They were not looking at cost savings at all. They are running their innovation platform looking for new product ideas, something that can be implemented into their cars that is totally new for the organization. And they run one example challenge with us together, and they have the goal, well, we want to achieve 12 productizable ideas in the end. And what has happened is they achieved 40 ideas that in the end turned into concepts. So you don't see a monetary goal here. You don't see the number, any kind of financial figures as a goal. You see simply the goal, well, we want to have 12 ideas that somehow can be turned into products. So if you compare those two organizations, the one is really focusing on monetary results, is really focusing on KPIs that have a real monetary value behind them, whereas here the KPI is, well, we want 12 new ideas that can be turned into products. So something totally different, and it simply shows you that KPIs are usually very unique to your organization. And if another organization uses a set of KPIs, it doesn't necessarily mean that they make sense for you. And you should simply try to identify KPIs in dialogue with your management and try to identify the most valuable KPIs for yourself. Very good. So what I would like to do is simply ask you one question, one of two questions that we want to handle today, and I simply start the questionnaire. You should see now a pop-up on your screen, and I would simply like to ask you to simply answer this question. Okay, I can see that the majority has already participated. Maybe we wait additional 10 seconds. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. So I close the question here now. And we will inform you, of course, about the results and the outcomes of those questions. Very good. So let's get to our next topic that is basically a little bit based on KPIs. Let's talk a little bit about benchmarking and what really the outcomes of benchmarking can be, and, well, how can benchmarking be utilized in the most useful way for you. And we have seen this as a difficult topic for our customers. So if it comes to comparing your own organization to other organizations, a lot of aspects play a role here. And I would like to show you, in the context of innovation management, what can benchmarking provide and how should it be used. So let's look at two example organizations here. On the left side, you have company one, 500 employees, $100 million revenue. You have on the right side company two, more or less double the size, double the employees, and double the revenue. The question is, if it comes to innovation and innovation management, which organization performs better? And I would like to give you a couple of measures and metrics and maybe KPIs to simply show you what should we focus on what is important if we want to evaluate an organization and its performance. So let's assume both organizations are running an innovation management platform, And let's say for 2014 until today, this would be the outcome of both innovation programs. We simply now count ideas, and if we take a look at this simple number here, company 1, 200 ideas, company 2, 100 ideas, we would probably assume that company 1 is performing better. If we just look at the number of ideas, if we just count them. If we now give a little bit of context, if we say, well, how did both companies perform in the past, suddenly our opinion might change. So let's say company 1, last year they got 500 ideas, and company 2 last year got 50 ideas. So company 1, actually, if it comes to simply counting ideas, is performing worse this year. And let's say company 2 is actually performing much better. They have double the amount of ideas. So if we take this now into account, we would probably assume that company 2 is performing better because they get more and more ideas, whereas company 1 is actually getting less ideas. If we take now another number into account, the amount of comments, so the aspect of collaboration, how many people are really engaged and participating, and how many people are really trying to connect to each other and discuss ideas, maybe our picture changes again here. And we say, well, company 1, we have a lot of employees which are very active if it comes to discussions and votings and comments. But company 2, well, we just have 10 comments. It's not a huge number here. So we would assume company 1 is performing better if it comes to the collaboration aspect here. Let's look at the number of implemented ideas here, and then we see again, maybe our picture changes. So company 1, out of those 200 ideas, they just have implemented 2 ideas. So this is a pretty low number now. And if it comes to company 2, they actually have implemented 20 out of those 100 ideas. So probably performing better. So I think you get the point that I want to make here. Last but not least, and this is really the thing that we should focus on if we want to compare companies to each other, what is the outcome? So what have both companies achieved if it comes to return on investment? Company 1 is doing very, very well, although they just implemented 2 ideas, whereas company 2, they are not doing so good, although they have so many ideas implemented. So company 1, those 2 ideas probably have a large impact on the organization, whereas company 2, those 20 ideas probably are of smaller scale, and they didn't achieve a lot of additional revenue, or they didn't save a lot of costs. So this is now the key aspect. If we want to compare companies and their innovation performance to each other, then probably we should focus on the return on investment. Because all other numbers, they maybe help us to shape a certain picture, but they are not, on their own, they cannot deliver the real message that we are looking for. We cannot really compare ourselves if it comes to simply counting ideas, counting comments, and so on. So if it comes to return on investment, that is something that we have seen, that is something that organizations can actually look for. So maybe you have an organization, one of your main competitors, and maybe you know what kind of innovation performance they have. If they achieve those results, that is something that you might be able to look for. But again, benchmarking is something that has to be treated with care. And I say that because let's take a look at 2 other companies. They somehow are equal in their performance. So you see, they, in terms of their size, in terms of their revenue, they're somehow similar. If it comes to their innovation performance, they nearly achieve the same results, the same amount of ideas. They had the same amount, more or less, last year. They achieved the same amount of comments, same amount of implemented ideas, and even a similar amount of return on investment. What this picture doesn't tell you in the end, it doesn't tell you 2 things. First of all, it doesn't give you any kind of information about the culture of an organization, about the structure of an organization. Does it have flat hierarchies or very large, complex hierarchies? It doesn't tell you what kind of management support the innovation management team has achieved. Maybe company 3 here, they just needed to talk once with their CEO, and the CEO was immediately on board, and he said, well, let's do it, let's invite every employee. Whereas company 4 maybe is struggling with the management support. They have to continuously convince middle managers, senior management. It's really tough for them to get the necessary support here. And it even doesn't tell you anything about the situation in which the companies are. So in which markets are they in what kind of competition do they have, and other aspects that play a role if it comes to evaluate an organization. and to identify what kind of performance do they have. It also doesn't tell you anything about the journey that they went through. It doesn't give you information about where they started. Maybe company 3 started 10 years ago with their innovation program. Maybe company 4 just started last year. So just giving you this piece of information tells you that the innovation journey and the efforts that were made to achieve those results is also important if it comes to really compare organizations against each other. So basically, if it comes to benchmarking, it is really critical to compare organizations against each other. Because in the end, each organization is unique and is different. We saw this in the examples that we talked about just a couple of minutes ago. PSA, Peugeot, Citroën, and the Deutsche Post DHL, they are looking for totally different things. Should the Deutsche Post DHL, should they look for product ideas in their innovation management program? Should, on the other side, PSA look for cost savings like the Deutsche Post did? That's a difficult question to answer. So we have seen this, that comparing organizations to each other, even if they are somehow a little bit similar, like in the example before that, it really lacks a lot of information usually, and it makes it difficult to get value out of numbers that other organizations have achieved. So what works better in the end? So what we have seen is that internal benchmarking is actually a way more valuable method if it comes to really identifying how good are we and where can we, what kind of goals can we reach. So what we have seen is that if you take your campaigns, if you take your initiatives that you run, and if you compare them against each other, what are the participation quotes? Where does participation come from? Does it always come from one business area, or does it really come from a diverse and mixed group of people? Is the business value that we have achieved, is that sufficient? Are our sponsors satisfied? This enables you simply to analyze your performance. Where are we right now, and where have we been maybe 12 months ago? So if we take 2 campaigns and simply try to analyze them against each other. And what also works very well is if we run campaigns simply multiple times. Some of our organizations, they do this really, really well. They simply take a topic that is more or less important all of the time, and they simply run campaigns on it. They maybe ask the question, how can we save energy? They ask their audience in January 2014. They run this campaign, and then they run the same campaign maybe in January 2015. And then they simply compare the results. So how good was the participation in both campaigns? What does it tell us in the end about engagement of our employees? What kind of value did we achieve? So how good were both campaigns if we compare them against each other? This is something that we have seen works really, really well. So our recommendation would be, in the end, internal benchmarking is the way to go. Try to look for campaigns that you can compare against each other. And if that is difficult for you, then maybe try to run similar campaigns, or really campaigns simply multiple times throughout certain time frames. And then simply identify, is that better than it was the iteration before? If not, then you have probably to react to that. Very good. So we've talked a little bit about KPIs. We have talked a little bit about benchmarking. So let's try to identify what are now the numbers that we are looking for, what identifies and indicates a really healthy innovation program. So on the program level, what we have seen is analyzing the employee structure and the behaviors of your employees is one tool that simply helps you to identify, do we have a healthy innovation program or not? We call this the shape of an organization. And what we usually recommend is that you should simply look into your employees and look into your workforce and simply try to identify how many of our employees are really active, are really enthusiastic about innovation and about our innovation program. So how many people are logging on continuously and are submitting content regularly, meaning, let's say, a comment once per week or an idea once per month, something like this. And as you can see, we have other groups here, the interested ones that log in regularly, but they just submit content occasionally, maybe a comment every quarter, maybe an idea every half a year. Their participation is really, it doesn't happen regularly. It's just by on demand, let's say. You have those people that are aware of your innovation program. They know something exists somewhere. They maybe log in a couple of times, but they are not really active. They don't submit anything. Then you have those people that are unaware. They don't know that there's an innovation program running in your organization. And then you have those people that they're not aware of your innovation program, and they generally are negative if it comes to corporate initiatives. And the interesting aspect here is that we have seen that if you monitor this shape, and if you see certain developments within this shape, then you should try to react to that. The best thing that you are looking for is that more and more people simply move up in this diagram. So the people that are interested, hopefully they become enthusiastic about our innovation program. The ones that are aware, hopefully they start to submit content. And that is something that you can monitor, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a month, something that you should keep an eye on. Another thing is that a healthy innovation program simply has continuously growing participation, meaning that participation doesn't see really bad bottlenecks or really doesn't see any kind of major drops. Of course, there are always a little bit of small drops here and there. But in the end, if you look, let's say, into the last 12 months, you should see continuously growing participation. That is an indicator for a healthy innovation program. The same goes for the employee structure itself. So if always the same people participate, if really just one business unit out of maybe, let's say, 10 that you have, if only those guys participate on a regular basis and everybody else and those other 9, they don't even look into the system, they're not active at all, then you should try to reach out to those other business units. A healthy innovation program involves everybody, and it tries to reach out to everybody. So maybe this could be an indicator that you should try to also look for more diverse campaigns. And maybe you should ask other people in your middle management or senior management to sponsor different campaigns than the campaigns you have run, let's say, the last 12 months. One number that I would like to share with you, what we have seen working with our clients is that on average, if you have 1 comment per idea, if it comes to your whole innovation program, this is an indicator for a good health in the end. Something that you should look for. If the number is way below that, then you probably should try to engage your people. You should probably try to motivate them to participate, to simply discuss topics, discuss ideas, because what we have seen is that healthy innovation programs have strong participation if it comes to commenting, and that usually comments add value to ideas. And in the end, the most successful innovation programs are the ones where people simply discuss ideas frequently. And last but not least, if it comes to your innovation program, a health indicator is, of course, the satisfaction level of your sponsors. So if you have, let's say, run 10 campaigns in the last 12 months, and only one of your sponsors, only one campaign has really achieved the value, of course, this is an indicator for missing quality, and independent of other factors, this is something that we should, in the end, focus on. Did all the campaigns that we start, did they achieve the value that their sponsors were looking for? If it comes to campaigns, we can actually give you more precise numbers. So first of all, what we have seen works really, really well is if you monitor a campaign, and campaigns usually have a running time of, let's say, 2, 3, or 4 weeks. If you monitor a campaign and you see that the amount of comments that you get are somehow similar to the amount of ideas that you have, then the campaign is in a good state. If the amount of comments is way below that, then you have to react in this campaign. You have to probably reach out to your employees again, to your target audience of this campaign. You maybe have to send out a reminder. You maybe have to have the sponsor getting involved into the campaign. Maybe he should write himself a couple of comments to simply show that this is of importance to him. And the same goes for the general participation level. So if you see that 30% or even more of your target audience is participating, this really is a tipping point for health. We have seen that campaigns that are really successful in the end have 30% or more participation from the target audience, meaning new ideas are being submitted from those people, comments and votes. So this is a number that you should look for. Another number that is important and that can indicate really healthy campaigns is the number of ideas that get evaluated. So if 10% or more of your ideas are evaluated or get evaluated in the end, this indicates in the end a good quality. So let's say if you run a campaign and you get 100 ideas, if 10 of those are identified as valuable, then this is an indicator of good quality. In the end, if you look at the implementation part, if 1% or more ideas are getting implemented, again, it's a sign for good quality. If out of those 100 ideas that you got in our campaign that we just described, if at least one of those ideas really gets implemented and achieves value, this is an indicator for a healthy campaign. We have seen that for some of our customers, they run campaigns, they get a huge amount of ideas, but in the end, the amount of ideas that get evaluated or even implemented is so low that simply it is not an indicator for quality anymore. So what do we recommend if it comes to monitoring an innovation program or monitoring in general? First of all, something that might sound intuitive, but is something that we really give out as an advice, simply monitor your program continuously. Something that we have seen is that organizations sometimes and innovation management teams, in some cases they only monitor the performance if management actually requests that, or they don't do this maybe at all, or they do this maybe once a year, so within very, very long cycles. We recommend monitor it continuously. And if it comes to an innovation program that you just want to launch, so a new innovation program that you want to implement, then you should monitor and review your results very, very closely at the beginning. So let's take the first 2, 3, or 4 campaigns. For those campaigns, you should really look into the numbers and look into those KPIs on a very, very close schedule or very tight schedule. So maybe every 2 days, you just monitor in a campaign, where did my ideas come from? Where does my participation come from? Is it, in terms of the numbers itself, is it a good value? If it comes to a development, do we get more and more people on board over the campaign running time? If not, you have to immediately react. It's a new initiative. It's something that is new to employees, and you should try to make the first campaigns as good as possible to, in the end, share success stories and, in the end, build confidence in your whole innovation program from start. What we also recommend, and this is for more mature innovation programs, we recommend to simply look very detailed every 6 months into your performance. So that is something that that we have seen works very, very well. Even if you are satisfied, generally satisfied with your performance, try to create, we call them health checks, every 6 months, where you simply take a deep dive into the data and you try to evaluate all the numbers. Maybe you're generally satisfied, but maybe, as I said, maybe participation is not, one business unit is not really participating, then you should try to tackle this. So this has proven to be very, very successful to simply analyze, even in mature programs, where are we right now, and do we have to change something, even on a small level. So the question that you should ask yourself is, continuously, do we achieve the benefits that we are looking for as an innovation team, and that especially management is looking for? So are the numbers that we report, are they the numbers that management is looking for? Did we solve anything? Did we solve a business challenge or business problem from one of your stakeholders? Did you have the chance maybe to exploit one or many of the opportunities that management is requesting? So these are the main questions that you should ask yourself if it comes to monitoring and reviewing your innovation program. Good. Now we get to the second question, and let me just try to open this one up. And you should see a pop-up now. All right, I think we maybe wait additional 10 to 20 seconds. So Okay, very good. So the majority of you have voted. Thank you for that. So I close the question. Let me just show you the numbers here. So you should see now the numbers on your screen. Interesting results, something that I missed on the question before that, but we will of course submit you the numbers in our follow-up email. And interesting to see. So you see the majority of your organizations are actually looking for KPIs that are related to revenue or to costs, which is a very, very good thing. So if I see this correctly, somehow 50% more or less deliver KPIs that really relate to value in the end. The KPIs on participation, and if it comes to individual campaigns and initiatives, also important. And I would assume that the KPIs, especially if it comes to campaigns and initiatives, would somehow also be related to cost or revenues. Interesting to see that only a very small minority of you are actually looking for KPIs on all levels. That is something that we will follow up in our follow-up email. Very good. So thank you for that. So let's look at our summary. What have we discussed today? First of all, if it comes to defining KPIs, KPIs are usually performance indicators that are somehow aligned to corporate goals, to the corporate strategy itself. That is one thing that we should take away from today. Second of all, and that's directly aligned to that, they usually focus on the value or the return on investment that management is really looking for. So that is something that we should keep in mind. The most valuable KPIs, and this is something that we have discussed, are the ones that simply reflect the value that management is looking for. As a third aspect, we've talked a little bit about benchmarking and what can we get out of it. So we have seen that benchmarking with external organizations, that's a difficult topic. So that is something that usually incorporates a lot of aspects. Even if you look at raw data, you don't know something about the innovation journey, you don't know something about the culture or the structure of an organization that you want to compare yourself to. So the better approach would be internal benchmarking. Try to compare yourself to past results in the end. And last but not least, if it comes down to monitoring, that is something that you should do continuously over time, something that you on a regular basis should conduct as a task. And you should continuously try to evaluate how successful am I right now? Is that something that can be improved? And even if in more mature programs, even in more successful programs, the monitoring aspect is a crucial one, because that is always something you can always try to, in the end, perform better and reach out to higher goals. Very good. So last but not least, how can HYPE support you in the end? So if you are looking for support from our side, we can offer you case studies that we have done with a couple of our clients. You can download them from our webpage, from our homepage. Something that we do, and Michel described in the beginning, we run innovation managers forums where we enable you to simply meet and connect to our clients and share your knowledge and experience. And what we also do is the strategic consulting part. Michel also described this in the beginning, where we simply want to work with you together if you're looking for making a program even more successful. So if it comes to value expansion, that is a service that we can offer. If it comes to really monitor a campaign closely, maybe you want to run a new innovation program, you are new to this topic, and you don't know how to do this really, then we can support you if it comes to really monitoring campaigns very, very closely. And last but not least, if it comes to those health checks every 6 months, we have a very broad experience on that. We are doing this with our clients continuously, and we have the right methodology to do that. So if you're interested in that, please simply just let us know. And this would actually conclude our webinar. So we are now, we have now somehow 6 minutes left. Let's try to look for any questions that you have. I have here 2 questions on my side. So one question is from Graziella Tamayosi. Actually, both of them are. So the first question would be, do you have KPIs from companies attended by you which I can compare my company to? That's an interesting question. So that is something that we have talked about. So we can provide you those KPIs if you want to, but this is something that is really has to be treated with a lot of care, because in the end, as we talked about, KPIs that other companies use are their KPIs. This is something that their management is requesting from them, and they live in their environment. It means they fit to their need and they fit to their exact strategy. So if it comes to utilizing other KPIs from other companies, we usually would sit together with you. We would try to analyze what are you looking for, what is your management requesting, and then we would try to identify together with you the right KPIs for you. So generally something that we can do, but we are a little bit hesitant to do that because usually we would try to simply identify the right KPIs that fit to your exact need. The second question would be, for a continuous innovation program, which KPIs do you recommend? This is a little bit related to the first question. There are typical continuous innovation or continuous improvement KPIs. The typical one would be the one that you have seen from the Deutsche Post. So how many euros or dollars or what kind of value can I save per employee? That is something that usually companies are looking for. But it relates a little bit to the first question. Also, if it comes to continuous improvement and continuous innovation, every company is looking to some other goals. The Deutsche Post is, they are measuring this KPI, but they have certain targets internally. Maybe you have different targets, maybe different KPIs are relevant for you. What I would like to do is maybe share with you 2 or 3 typical continuous improvement KPIs, but in the end, this is something, again, you have to decide this on your own in the end. So what is your management requesting if it comes to continuous improvement? What kind of goals do they set? And then you have to break this down into KPIs that really make sense to you. Last but not least, we have a question here from Christina Barbosa. How many KPIs we should address to innovation program? That's a very good question. And we have identified that you have, as we said, you have to differentiate KPIs from metrics and simple measures that you have or that you conduct. And what we have seen is that if we take all of our clients and if we take all of their programs, usually 4 to 8 KPIs are sufficient. So these are the numbers. If it comes to simply counting KPIs, you shouldn't have more. We have seen organizations that report 20, 30, or even way more KPIs. Management usually doesn't know how to interpret those numbers. So if you concentrate on 4 to 8 KPIs, that has been a best practice for us. It doesn't mean that it is the right number for you, but it simply shows you that the number shouldn't be too high. If you go beyond that, usually you then lose focus, and then you don't only report on the value that you have achieved, you then report maybe on other measures that you have achieved, but that are not so important maybe for management. Christina also sent in another question, and maybe this is the last question that we can talk about. Do you recommend variation of KPIs capable to provoke the critical analysis of top management? Yes, that is also a good question. So if you have KPIs that could somehow question the opinion that management has, that is something that you could try to measure, but that is something, of course, you have to treat with care. Again, that is something, if you question management, I would assume this is always a critical point. But of course, that is something, a service that you could deliver. If you could highlight that certain value can be achieved that management hasn't looked at yet, then this is a benefit for management. If you can provide additional benefit to your top management, then our recommendation would be try to do it, but try to do it very carefully. Maybe you just report this maybe to just one manager that you are very close to, or that that is looking for something. So yes, we have seen this, that organizations do this. We have seen innovation managers that they try to report on additional value that can be achieved, simply to arouse more interest among top managers, to simply state, well, dear management, you can use innovation management and this platform to achieve this and this and this. You haven't thought about this in the past, but we provide you the data here, and it shows you that you can go and think about these aspects too. And I think this is the last question. All the other questions, we will answer them in the follow-up. So thank you for your participation, and yeah, wish you an enjoyable day, and yeah, I hope to see you then in the next webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, thank you everybody. I hope you found the webinar useful. Any feedback is highly appreciated, and as mentioned, we will send you a follow-up email containing the slides, and also we will upload the webinar recording to our homepage so that you have the opportunity to watch it again or share it with your colleagues. Goodbye, and hope to see you soon again.